Well, again, everybody, this is Steve coming to you with another intro to writing video. This one is one I know you guys have been waiting on for a while because for some reason it seems like a lot, people have, or a lot of people have problems with world building. I actually find it fairly easy, which, that might be the fact that I've been doing this for 33 years and have gone through all of the, the stumbles and fumbles and face plants and all that stuff that come with building a world. But actually, I think a lot of people kind of overthink this. I think that's why it's so difficult for them. And, before you're like, well, do you overthink everything? Yes, very much so. I very much overthink things. It's just how I'm wired. But I actually find world building to be pretty easy. The biggest first step you have to understand is you have to have an anchor, something around which to build. For me, to use my 3 series for an example, with Lion in the Wind, the anchor was the lion Tagani. And if you're wondering how you spell that weird name, or pronounce it, I should say, it's Tagani. I could explain that, but I've done that in other videos, so I'll skip that. Anyhow, it all started with Tagani. And then it was a matter of asking the 6 basic questions of really writing, not even just world building, but writing a question, or writing in general, I should say. Oh, I'm having word problems today. Those 6 questions, I jokingly like to call them the 5 W's, but there's 6 of them, and one of them doesn't have a W. But anyways, it's who, what, where, when, why, and how. Like in the case of Tagani, it was who is he? Where is he? In other words, where is he living? What's his house look like? Does he have a house? Does he live in the wild? Who, what, who is Tagani? What is he? Where does he? Where is he? Where does he live? Etc. Why does he exist? How did he come into existence? Was he born? Was he built? In the case of Tagani, the latter would be true because he's an android. When is a good question. What is the time frame? And how is he important to the story? How was he built? How was he created? Things like that. You throw those questions around and you start world building, and you're probably sitting there going, that still doesn't help me. Well, I'm just, like I say, this video is basically the 50,000 foot view. This is get you started. If you guys need more, I could work up. I don't have Restream. I don't stream. I could probably stream if I wanted to. I eventually plan to, but right now I'm not. Yes, and the neighbors are showing off. Anyways, I'm not streaming. I don't have enough time to stream right now. I'm kind of building these videos during downtimes, which doesn't say a lot because I don't have a lot of downtime right now. Eventually I will, but because I'm slowly, finally getting caught up on things, but there's still such a shopping list to do. But anyways, a good way to get started with this is to sit down with pen and paper. If you're like me and you work better on a computer, sit down at a computer and start with the core character, the core item, the core element of your story. What is your story about? And here, the fun part is, it doesn't have, that one item does not have to be the main character, does not have to be the center of the story. All it is it is a seed. Like with Earthfleet. Earthfleet came about because I pictured a starship that looked like an a modified space-worthy SR-71. That was how the Surgenius started. And if you ever seen the design of it, you look at it and go, oh yeah, it does kind of look like that. Well, the idea of a restructured, redesigned SR-71 that would be built for space flight is where the Surgenius came from. I don't even remember how I came up with that idea or that concept, but that's kind of where I started. And then I was like, okay, well, how does the ship run? Well, it's run by an AI named Sarah. And then it was like, okay, that's fine. You have a starship. You have the starship with an intelligent AI. Who is it? Who owns it in this case? Because it doesn't have its own personality. So you'd say, who owns it? Where is it located? Why does it exist? What is its purpose? When in the time or the frame of time and space does it exist? You know, how is this important? And I just started answering those questions, and that's what you need to do to initially get started. You know, like I said, that's not the end all be all. Hey, I got my main character. I asked the 6 questions. Now I've got everything I need for a book or a story with it. No, you don't. No, you don't. Nope. Like I say, this is just starting out. But you need to ask those questions. It's how I came up with Tagani's story in Lion in the Wind. It's how I came up with Earthfleet, which it ended up that the Sergenius was not the main character, even though it's a primary secondary character, because it's not an actual living, breathing character like a person. It's a world element, but it carries an important role. Because if you ever read the books, the Sergenius is all over the place. You know, that's Mike the Grand Admiral. That's his flagship. That ship goes everywhere with him. I mean, that thing is just like sewn to his hip, just about. If he, unless he's in soul space and he can just transport around as he needs to, that ship is sewn to his hip wherever he goes. You see it in Book 1, Ort Perimeter. Not a lot. You see it especially in the final battle, but not a lot through the book. But you do hear about it. It's a plot element. It's an important part of the story. In the second one, they use it to get out to Cebius, and they use it to rescue themselves from Cebius, which if you read the book, you'll understand that part. Book 3, it doesn't play a large role, but it does play a couple of important roles throughout the book. And then in the fourth one, it plays a huge role, especially in the final battle at the Haven. Because just like with the Ort Perimeter in Book 1, the Book 1 that started everything, in Book 4, the Sergenius is center stage, helping to finish everything and wrap up the whole story. The Sergenius is key in Book 5, Dark Earth, and it's key in Book 6. I mean, Book 6 is the one book where it is really, or not Book 6, Book 7, excuse me, Weaver's Forge. It is really center stage in that book. So, and the thing is, that started out as the seed that got the whole world of Earthfleet going. Because I was asking, who does it belong to? Well, then I started thinking about it, going, well, okay, you got a hyper advanced starship. Who would benefit from having this? Well, maybe a military organization, because it's a combat vessel. It's basically a Corvette on steroids, and I'm talking like rocket fuel steroids. But anyways, it's owned by Earthfleet. Okay, well, Earthfleet's a military force. Who do they answer to? And who would have the technology? Because it's certainly not going to be Earthfleet. That's going to have the scientists and the brain power and everything to run, to build this ship. Who built it? Well, that's where I started getting the society. Okay, you have the society. The society's the information nerds, the eggheads, who have the science and technology and understanding to build this ship. Well, okay, they built the ship, and the ship is part of Earthfleet. So what's Earthfleet's purpose? Well, Earthfleet's purpose is to defend Earth. Okay, great. From who or what? Well, then I started realizing, that's a good question. Who would they need to defend themselves from? And as I'm working through these questions, and I'm building them out, you could think of it like it's not a plot tree. It's and some of you guys will know what I'm talking about. If you've ever seen like a finals bracket, it's like looking at the right side of the finals bracket, but the finals point down at the center where it's just two teams and one final, one grand finals competition. That single point, that winner on that finals tree, whatever it's called, that is your starting point. So you're not going from multiples down to 1 point. You're going from 1 point the other direction. And it's like I've just been explaining to you and just showed you, you're answering, you sit there and you answer these questions, and as you answer them, you write out the idea. And don't worry if it doesn't end up lasting until you start writing or even survive the rough draft, because there's a golden rule of world building. Golden rule of writing is no outline ever survives the rough draft. Believe me. I have wrote some gorgeous, absolutely beautiful outlines and had to throw away a third of it because as I got into there and started sorry, as I started digging through the story and writing it and fleshing it out, I all of a sudden looked at those ideas and thought, that's just not going to work, and I took a different direction. But that's fine. Don't be afraid to take, even large sections of your notes and burn them to ash. Hopefully not literally if you're using paper or a computer, but don't be afraid of getting rid of that if it doesn't work. The point here is you are writing ideas. The ideas you're writing are there to spawn other ideas. And like I say, once you get to writing the first thing, start writing other things. Start answering other questions. It's like I was talking about, like, okay, who owns the Sergenius? Well, it's Earthfleet. Well, who does Earthfleet answer to? It's the Society. Well, who's the Society? Well, they're these information nerds. Okay, well, what's Earthfleet's purpose? To protect Earth. Who are they protecting them from? Well, there's all these aliens out here in the galaxy. Some of them are friendly to Earth. Some of them are not. We happen to be within a republic that is friendly to us. And who is this republic? Well, it's the Gaek Vaughn. Well, who are they? Well, they're a bunch of lizard people. And the fun thing with the lizard people idea, or the reptoids, is I was like, okay, normally in sci-fi the lizards are the bad guys. I thought, why don't I flip it to where they're the good guys? And then there's the Prant, which are kind of the humanoid species in the galaxy. They're the closest to humans among all the races, and they happen to be one of the 9 ancient races, the 9 biggest in the galaxy. And they are a bunch of arrogant sods. I mean, they are arrogant. Like, we are superior to all you vermin. That's who the Prant is. So that's kind of a play on humanity in a sense. So the Prant were essentially a pun. They were kind of the bad side of humanity. Humanity's got a bad side, and these guys make the bad side look like the good side. So, and then I there was some other races I came up with, like the God, what was those? I'm trying to remember the name. They were the rabbit species, the Gaedal. It was a rabbit species. They were a bit of a pun. If you read the books, you'll catch the pun. It's not thinly veiled, or it's not veiled heavily or anything. It's very thinly veiled, but it's a pun. Then you have the Yetish, which are Yeti. That one I just did for fun. You've got the 2 major predators of the animal kingdom, the wolves and the cats, which are the Angolorians and the Trigarians. Both of them running around with a major chip on their shoulder. And then you've got another cat species, which kind of plays on the idea of Curiosity killed the cat, which is the Yandians, because they're information nerds. I had to have a race in there like that. Somebody who would be my walking encyclopedia, if you will. And then you've got all these different races. You've got bug races. You've got little... the Imgadi, I think is their name. I think it's the Imgadi. They're a race of sentient bobcats with attitude. Row, hiss, hiss, that kind of thing. And you got all kinds of different races. You got the Razcor that are kind of beagle-like. And different ones like that. And I just had fun with it. I tried to stay away from the traditional alien tropes of the gray skin and the great big bulbous anime eyes and stuff like that. I went and tried to do something unique, something fun with each race that I had in there, because one of the races, they're a major creator of, I don't know if it was trinkets or furniture or what they were, but they're gigantic, they're basically gigantic stink bugs. You've got another race that's kind of the Borg in biological form. They walk down the hallway looking like a gigantic mushroom, but actually they're all these little individual creatures working as a hive mind. If you ever read Destiny's Mission, which is book 2, you briefly meet them. I have yet to have a use for them in the book series or that universe, but I did mention them as one of the races to described all the uniqueness of the galaxy. There's just all this variety out there. And that all came from the Sergenius and asking questions and asking myself, and don't think it's weird to talk to yourself. I do it all the time, but it's a way for me to talk it out. And if you need another good, effective way to help you build out your notes, build out your ideas, and so on and so forth, write them in a way that you can explain it to somebody and explain it clearly and in a way that the other person can understand. Because if you can't explain it to them, then that means you don't know it well enough. You have to be able to talk about every element in your book just like it is real. That's the level of depth you need to get to when you are creating your worlds. They need to be so real, the people, the environments, the things, that you can describe them verbatim like like the smartphone in your hand, and just tell them every little detail about it. And okay, going back for another example, the idea for Off-World Chronicles started with, ironically enough, this was the whole idea at the start. And I don't even remember what I was doing research on something, and the idea came up. And the idea was, if you were sent on a survival race or a survival hike, or you had to go out and survive in the wild, what 3 things would you want to bring with you? If you could only bring 3 things, what would it be? Well, then I pictured it like, okay, well, what if this is a race? Okay, well, what if it's on an alien world? Okay, well, what is the requirements of the race? And so on and so forth. And the ideas, it was just ideas go burr right after that, because it just, once I started solidifying that initial thought in my head, the rest of it just rolled. And the thing is, some of you again are probably going, yeah, but I can't do that. I struggle at that. It's so hard. Then you're working on the wrong idea. If it's the right idea, it's going to come out of you faster than you can write it down. Trust me. And one thing I got to say, though, when it comes to world building or creating any story, don't force it. Don't force an idea. You might come in and say, but I want to write a love novel. I want to write a romance novel. I want to write a mystery novel. That's great. But do you have a story that just rolls out of you? If not, set it down, walk away. Let it stew. If it doesn't go anywhere, throw it out. You might be like, but I want to write that. That's great. But you need the story first. You need the characters. You need a main character. You need an anchor item, be it like a starship, or a robotic lion, or a guy getting put into a survival race. There has to be an anchor. And that anchor is the seed that starts everything else. Because let me use an example from one book that I had that failed on me. And I've had a lot of them, so I don't think that, just because I've written 29 books that, I've got the magic, I can just point, click, and make stuff work. No. There has been a lot, and I mean a lot. I can't even count them, how many stories. I had the initial idea. It sounded great. I started working with it. It died. Eventually, it's like, okay, fine. I'd shelve it, sit there, think about it. Nothing ever happened. Just throw it away. And then go back and try something else. And, like some of you will think of that as failure. I don't. I take that as, hey, I thinned out something from my repertoire that just did not work. But anyways, getting back to what I was saying. The idea I had, and this is back when I first started writing. It's probably like 92, 93, something like that. If I remember correctly, around that time, Voltron and other big mecha and Power Rangers type stuff. I think Power Rangers was even out at that time, or if it not, it would have been shortly after that. But during this time period, there was a lot of this. Hey, let's ride around in gigantic mechas that look like animals, and we'll assemble them together and make a great big, Gundam-style robot with a massive sword and beat up some dude in a lizard suit. I don't know. That was just a big thing back then. So what I did was I tried to create a book called Striders. The idea with Striders was it was a group of military people who rode around in something that was basically Voltron meets Star Wars ATST. The great big Stormwalkers. It was essentially that. It was just this gigantic tiger that you jumped into, a la Power Rangers, and you drove the thing around. It had guns that come out of his shoulder and his back, and toot. Of course, you got to remember, I was 20 years old at the time. 20 years old with a mentality of like an 8-year-old. So that it sounds really childish to you, but at that point in time, I thought it was the greatest thing since sliced bread. So I tried writing that, and one thing that's funny is I started the idea, did an initial battle to introduce the actual Striders themselves, what they could do, how they behaved, and everything like that. Finished up that battle, had it where General's like, hey, you guys did a great job. We're going to send you off to the academy to make you better. Okay. Packed everybody up on the starship. Starship took off for the stars, and the idea died right there. Okay. So eventually I set that aside. Lost the manuscript, which is hilarious. Couldn't find it. Finally rewrote it. Found the manuscript afterwards, which is ironic. And the hilarious part was the two manuscripts were almost identical, names and everything. But, and I'm not saying that to brag, because I can't do that anymore. I could back then because I had a really great memory. Nowadays, it's like, did I forget my name or did I forget my name? So, that's what you get for being 53 years old. You forget stuff. Wait, what were we talking about? No. But seriously. The thing about it is, even though I completely rewrote it from memory, I got to that same point where they were flying off the academy and the idea stopped. I could not get it to go any further. I was asking the questions, and I was going through the routine, doing everything I knew to world build, and I could not get it past that point, so I eventually just abandoned the story completely. That will happen. If you run into that, don't be afraid to throw it out. If you think you can still salvage it, go in and rethink it. Maybe you're approaching it wrong. I don't know. I mean, back then, I was green as can be as far as a writer goes. So I didn't think of that. I just eventually gave up on it. But, when I went down the line and kept trying, and finally got some ideas that started working. But, but then my writing, I could build the world really great, but then there were other parts of it that I didn't build, which I had a lady who was my piano teacher. I gave it to her to read. She says, it's a really great story. Your characters are great, but there's no world behind it. Oh. So I started working on it. And if you need help building the world, expanding ideas and stuff, talk to other people. Talk to them. Explain the story. Explain the details. Have a pen and paper with you, because sometimes while you're doing this, it's all of a sudden going to be like, bing, oh, I got an idea. And you start writing it down like, so fast the page catches fire. That will happen, and that's sometimes a great way to spawn an idea. And I was talking to my dad, and my dad says, yeah, why don't because I was starting out basically at the ending rather than the beginning of the story, and pretty much the final battle. If you ever read Lion in the Wind, you'll read about Garmak and the final battle. Well, that was how my Lion in the Wind originally started out. It was the Battle of Garmak, because I didn't have anything else. And Dad's like, well, why don't you start not just at the beginning of Tagani, but before he began? Who created him? How did he come about? What drove him to be created, or to be created and built and invented and stuff? And it was like, oh, that's an idea. Okay. And I started going through there and the ideas that he gave me and started exploring those. And pretty soon I get Feral Black. I get Professor Burgon. I get Persia and all these other characters. Then I end up with, it's like, okay, so why is he here? What is motivating him? What is his purpose? Oh, okay, that's where you get Meshwa and Nagago and all the other characters like that, and it just starts taking off. The book just starts taking off. The idea starts taking off, and pretty soon, I think before I got it completely cleaned up to where I wanted it, my 20,000 word, well, it wasn't even 20,000 words. I think it was like about, well, maybe it was 20,000 or 10,000, something like that. It was real small. My little initial story turned into a 150,000 word beast. And it was because I had other people asking me questions about it, and I didn't have the answer, so I went back and had to come up with the answers. And the answers ended up spawning more ideas. and it answering, it answered their questions. It spawned more questions, which then spawned more answers and stuff. Uh, that worked really, really well, honestly. Uh, then let me think here. Oh, this is something I've used for a couple of my other stories, either short stories or I've got a couple other ones that I'm going to be working on. It's not Cat Quest. It is. Let me think. I'm trying to think. I can't think of what it's called, but it's a story of a cat in a city full of people, regular people, and people who are cyborgs. It's that side of it is kind of like Alita Battle Angel in a sense. If you want a good example, I mean, I didn't take from Battle Angel. I don't think I'd even watched Battle Angel when I got the idea. I was watching something else, and then Battle Angel came out, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, that's a good way to view it." Not the way I view it, but that's a good example way to view it. No, my idea actually came from. Who was it? I don't know. It was something I was watching, and it just kind of. I'm watching this video, just random video on YouTube about cats, and ding, up comes the idea, and I'm over here, writing out what I had on the idea, where it would go, and stuff like that. And then as I've gotten little bursts of inspiration, I go back and write them down. And like I say, write down everything you think of, even if it seems to conflict, even if it seems stupid, because a stupid idea that you may not end up using might spawn a smart idea later on. It might spawn creativity in a different area. Like, well, I want a poodle in my story. Well, but my story is all about these anthropomorphic animals. Well, hey, what if the poodle happens to be the maid for the for the cat character and stuff? Things like that. It's it's an idea generator is what you're looking at. And like I say, if you're looking for a specific theme, read books that other authors have written. Look at how they did it. Look at what they created. Don't copy them. Don't go one to one with it. Use it as an idea seed. It's like I've said with AI. Don't use it directly. Use it as an idea seed. And you can go in. You can read the books. You can read history. You can read, or you can watch videos on YouTube and Rumble. I think if you want stuff that's a little bit useful, a little bit cocaine crack powered, do stuff on YouTube. If you want stuff that's actually sane, go over to Rumble. But that's just my opinion. But yeah, just go in there and and watch videos. It might say, well, that's a complete waste. Oh my goodness, no! You would not believe how many times I've been watching somebody do something on YouTube and. Oh, that just spawned an idea. And it may not be, like he might be drilling a well and the idea comes to me like, well, okay, well, what if this and this is a fountain of water coming from such and such a place and it has magical powers, and you might look at it and go, how the heck does well drilling give you a magical well? You'd be surprised. Your mind will connect some really weird freaking things when you're out there idea scraping, trying to find something to spawn your creativity. And that's the fun part about it. I mean, that I think building the ideas is half the fun of world building. And again, if even if not all of your ideas survive to the end, the process itself is fun. Especially going out there and getting the ideas, building them, taking something that somebody else has done, for example, and remaking it your way. And I've said that before. When it comes to creating things in your books, don't be afraid to take somebody else's idea and remaster it. Because, and don't feel guilty about that, because that writer has done the same thing with somebody else. And that writer before them did the same thing, and so on and so forth. It's like the old saying, there's nothing new under the sun. Well, that's exactly true. And they were saying that in the, 1500 BC? They were already saying that there's nothing new under the sun. So that means that somewhere 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 years ago, all the original ideas ran out, and everybody's just been retooling and remastering every single idea that's out there in one form or fashion since then. The only thing I have an issue with is if you directly copy somebody else's work. Unless, like if you're doing, let's say you're doing historical fiction and you're quoting somebody, of course you got to have your citations and all that kind of stuff. If it's a cited work or, something that you have to lift directly from somebody else, cite it. It's like, I've used before in one of my books that, Arthur C. Clarke, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And I will mention his name. I'll say, well, just like what Arthur C. Clarke said, blah, 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 blah. And if you do that, you don't have to have the little footmark symbol in your book and have the footnotes in the back of the book that cite, this came from Arthur C. Clarke on such and such and so and so. As long as you at least mention who said it, it still counts, which is kind of an interesting loophole in the laws of citing works. But there are times you have to have that citation and have it in the book or at the bottom of the page or whatever like that, so you give credit to the original person. And sometimes just simply mentioning it, like, what is it? Well, I've had like things that are like pop culture references, like Happy Days, or I didn't actually use Happy Days, but just to use as an example. You might have your character and they're going, yeah, all of this looks like a bad episode of Happy Days. That's fine. You borrowed an idea from somebody else, but you reference the fact that it was not yours, which just saying it that way is enough for the reader to go, oh, this comes from somewhere else. Saying a bad episode of Happy Days tells you automatically, oh, this comes from a TV show, so this is not your work. But anyways, not to get off on that too much, but like I say, if you want to get inspiration from other people, go for it. That reading other people's books and getting ideas from them is really, really useful. But in the end, make it yours, give it your distinct flavor, a taste of your personality. The other thing too is when you're building characters, I've mentioned this in a different video, but I'll mention it here too, is don't make carbon copy characters when you're building a book. I've seen that happen and the books suck. Now the story might be great, but all the characters sound exactly the same, and that is just boring and mind-numbing, because then you lose track of who's doing what, and nobody has any unique part of unique feature of themselves because everybody's a carbon copy of everybody else. Don't do that. Give everybody a unique personality, like in Lion in the Wind. I can't remember the guy's name, but it was the 1980s. It was either late 80s or early 90s. Might have been early 90s. And I can't remember the guy's name, but he played the Cardinal in Three Musketeers. And the guy did a beautiful job with the Cardinal. And the reason I like the Cardinal so much is the Cardinal had the way the actor portrayed the Cardinal in Three Musketeers fit my character of Farrell Black perfectly. Now, I did not one-to-one copy the Cardinal over. I took the idea of who the Cardinal was and used that in my book. And what the Cardinal was that made him so unique was the fact that this dude could literally go from evil to beatific and back like flipping a switch. Literally, it was that smooth, that perfect. And it was so fun to watch in the movie, and I thought, I need that kind of personality with Farrell Black, because he's going to be working with a lot of people that can read between the lines really well, which means he needs to be able to flip between good guy and evil villain and do it seamlessly. And I used the Cardinal as an example to build my own character with that particular trait. And again, that's not the first time that idea has been used. I just took that particular design, reworked it for myself, and used it in my book. But we're running about 35 minutes here. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to throw at you, because again, I'm just giving you the starter point for world building. Once you get into it, once you start doing it, you start learning how it works, you get the feel of it, stuff like that, it becomes infinitely easier. The hardest part is just getting started. And a big thing I have to say here too is don't overthink your story. If it doesn't come out of you naturally, if it doesn't come out of you smoothly, skip it. I don't care if you want, if you want a character that is 100% Princess Diana in your story. If you can't see and feel and taste and touch and smell that character, then they're not a character you should be writing. You should know that character like you know yourself. Probably even better than you know yourself. Because you need to be able to speak authoritatively about that character like they're a real person, just like I've already said. So, if you're writing notes and you're writing ideas and something just doesn't feel right, something just doesn't work, go around it, ditch it, try something else. Even if it's a cool idea and you want it, say like you want some dude in a power suit with a laser sword running around hacking people up, but you can't make the idea work, then skip it. Go somewhere else. Try something different. Maybe he, instead of a laser sword, he has a blaster, and you're like, oh, but the laser sword's more cool. So, if you can't make it work in your idea, in your idea blocks, skip it. Go with something you can make work. And later on, as you get better, maybe you can circle back and try that idea again and see if it works again. It's like the book I'm working on right now. It's got I'm seriously thinking of changing the name, but right now it's got a working title of A Wielder's Dream, which to me sounds dumb and clunky, but that was the name suggested to me. I have a better one I think I'm going to switch to eventually. But anyways, when I started that one, it was as an experiment, because I have tried doing first-person storytelling before and failed at it every single time. And yet I got into this one, and the ideas just flowed like a smooth river of water. And I couldn't figure out why. Was it the fact that I'm writing, that I've got experience now and it's easier writing in first person? Actually, I don't think so. The more I got to thinking about it, the more I realized, well, I've perfected my writing in third person. I know how to build characters. I know how to build worlds. I know how to build storylines. I know how to build all that stuff and do it really, really well. And really, it doesn't matter if you're telling the story in first, second, or third person. The story is built the same. The only thing that's different between the two of them is who is telling the story. Is it a third-party narrator, or is it the main character? That's really the only difference I've found. When I first started it out, like I say, it was really, really hard. But then I thought about it, recently as I'm just blazing through this one, and I've already, just to give you an idea how far I'm blazing through it, I started this last week, as I speak, which is today's May 10th. I started it probably May 1st or 2nd, probably May 5th. I don't know, something like that. It hasn't been very many days. And I'm already 40 pages and 32,000 words into it. Like, what? I mean, 32,000 words into a book I thought was only ever going to make it to 20,000 words and the only reason it got that far was I was able to solidify the world, complete the basic world building, complete the basic character building, and run with it from there. And it flowed so perfectly, but yeah, it's all told in first person through the eyes of Clarence. Once you read the book, you'll understand who Clarence is, and I'm not gonna tease or spoil it for you. But yeah, once I got in there and started doing that, it was just amazing how fast the story ran. Now I've got one part I'm a little stuck on right now, and that's just because it's a transition point, and I'm not quite sure how to transition it without it sounding stupid. Once I get that figured out, then the rest of it should go. And I think that is gonna be me just figuring out the second MC. When I say second MC, you're like, there's only supposed to be one MC. No, there can actually be multiple MCs, multiple main characters. You just have to be careful how you do it. But once I get past that, I think the writing will start rolling again, because I got a lot of other ideas. I mean, a lot of them aren't written out, but I can already see them in my head. And as I do more world building, I'm going to be able to see them better and more clearly. I'll be able to completely flesh them out in my notes and stuff, which I'm also going to cover that in another. Man, I'm yawny today. I feel like I'm yawning every time I get on here and try to do one of these videos. Oh man, this must be so boring. No. No, I think it's just the fact I'm talking so much it makes me yawn. But anyhow, yeah, I think a lot of why it's so much easier right now is I've gotten a lot better at telling stories. Plus, unlike the previous ones where I tried to do a first person story, I built the world before I actually tried to write the story, not write the story as I'm trying to build the world. Which, oh, that is so painful, and you will hate yourself and you will burn your notes and everything else before you get a quarter of the way into the idea. Trust me. Build your world and your characters first and then write, because then you have something to write about. You're not trying to, well, where do I go with this and who am I talking to and what am I supposed to do? Like I say, write it all out to begin with, and it becomes so much easier to actually do the book, which I think, if I was to be truthful, that is the key to writing successful books, is to start by building the world, building the characters, building the framework, and then after that you're telling the reader, you're explaining to the reader what's happening, what you saw. You stop being the author and you start being the scribe. You let the story tell itself. So yeah, if you haven't done your homework, if you haven't done your notes and your research and your world building and stuff like that beforehand, your stories are going to be so hard. But once you have everything in place, it's just, it's like walking up to a friend and going, "Hey bud, did you hear about such and such? I got to tell you about this." And you give them this whole 2-hour sales pitch on this character and what they do and where they live and and the world around them and stuff like that. And like I say, if you can't tell it like you know the person or you know the thing intimately, you haven't done enough world building. But anyways, I'm almost at 42 minutes. I've yacked long enough. I've given you guys, I hope, enough to get started. If you need more, let me know. I will happily do another video, and we can touch on any particular topics of world building that you want to go into in more detail. Like I say, this gets you started. Go ahead and take the ideas I've given here, use them, experiment with them, find out what works, what doesn't work for you. And like I say, if you need more help, come back to me, and I'll gladly create another video, and we'll go over some more things on how to world build and and create your stories and make fun, believable, exciting, engrossing, encapsulating stories that people just want to read. It's not like, do I have to? It's a story that they get in there and they just flip the books and they flip through the pages and they just can't put it down. And it's just that old adage of one more page, one more page, one more chapter, one more chapter. That's the kind of stories you want, and every person is capable of building them. It's whether you're willing to do it or not, and willing to do the footwork and the homework and everything necessary to make it happen. But anyways, I'll leave it there. And again, if you guys want more, let me know. Otherwise, feel free to like, subscribe, comment, and hit the notification bell for other videos, because I will be continuing to do these as people ask for more stuff. I've done pretty much everything I can think of. I've got 3 more topics to go on, or to go with still. But and then I've got a couple more. Let's see, I think I got about 7 more topics to work on. But yeah, even after that, there's always something to talk about with writing. Maybe I'll go into publishing. My friend Don is talking about when it comes to my weekend, not normal weekend, my weekend. If you've listened to my other videos, you know what I'm talking about. When it comes to my weekend, we'll probably sit down and do a live stream on publishing, and he is a really good authoritative figure on that. So anyways, yeah, I'm still yakking here, and we're at 44 minutes. So anyways, I will catch you guys in the next video.